Mini or not, evil can't be contained. Here's a look at the Diamond Select Dungeons & Dragons The Animated Series Minimates Set 2 Villains. Diamond Select Toys returns to the animated world of the D&D cartoon in the 1980s with an all-new deluxe box set of 2-inch Minimates. This new set includes an array of villains: Venger, Warduke, Deon, the Skeleton Warrior, a Shadow Demon, and Nightmare Venger's horse that he can really ride. Plus, get a figurine of the Dungeon Master with removable ice crystal prison. Each Minimate features multiple points of articulation and character-specific accessories, and all parts are fully interchangeable. They come packaged in a full-color box-style window box with panel cover, designed and illustrated by Barry Bradfield. Luckily for us, we don't have to search through dungeons to find this set for ourselves. In fact, the Dungeons & Dragons Minimates Set 2 Villains is currently available either in comic specialty stores or online. We had just recently looked at the Set 1 that consisted of all the heroes, and this set is actually going for the same price, around $50 for all the figures that you're getting. You're essentially only really getting, if you look at them from a Minimate standpoint, only really 4 characters. Then you're getting the horse, then you're also as well getting the Dungeon Master. Where's the Dungeon Master? You'll see the Dungeon Master in a second. Each one of these figures, though, are on average about 2 inches in height. Characters like, for example, Venger are going to be a lot taller simply just because there's a lot more going on for him. If it was to measure just him alone, then you're looking at this Minimate specifically being about 2.5 inches rather than the 2, or about 6.5 centimeters tall. Speaking of dungeon adventures, hey, if you've been following the adventures of this reviewer, well, we've already looked at Set 1 of the Dungeons & Dragons Minimates. Let's bring in those right now. Of course, we've got ourselves here Hank, we've got ourselves Presto, Bobby, my personal favorite, Eric off to the side, also as well Sheila, and front and center, also here's what they look like with Diana. Can't help it, of course, not leave out Uni the Unicorn. Both the first sets were all focused on the heroes. Now we're going to be looking at Set 2, the villains. Set 2 of the Dungeons & Dragons Minimates are really full of oddities. One that would expect a regular traditional Minimate body might only really find 3 figures that have that. Venger, Deon, and Warduke are really the ones that have a traditional Minimate head, top, torso, lower legs, and arms attached to that. Characters, though, like Shadow Demon are missing lower legs in favor of a replacement stand. And then a case like Nightmare, the horse, actually not only has 1 pair of Minimate legs, but actually has a front and a back set. Also contained in this set, I don't know if you would really consider it to be a Minimate, but Dungeon Master also goes for the ride, maybe perhaps against his will. He is, though, one of the included accessories, and I really would put him in a category of an accessory and not necessarily as a Minimate, because if you look at him, first of all, he's contained inside of a frozen prison. When he got him out of the packaging, in fact, actually he was on the top, like he was looking like he was on the top of a mountain, but actually it's supposed to go over top of his body like that. It's still done in translucent blue plastic, and it's still done in a way that you'd be able to see straight through it. Underneath, though, is a little Minimate version. Oh, look at the size of this guy. A little Minimate version of Dungeon Master. He has, unfortunately, no posability possessed in his head, and he certainly has nothing in his arms. He's more just a staction figure than anything else. But, I mean, really, it would be a hard thing. I suppose they probably, if anything, could have given him a ball joint for the head and maybe nothing else. But he serves more as just a accompanying display piece. And he certainly would work really well, especially if you have yourself the hero versions of them. You can have the displayed Dungeon Master along with them. And if to look at them, you can see, like, Dungeon Master only really goes to about the waist of a regular traditional Minimate. So they come included with those. The figures also, of course, come included with clear acrylic display stands. Because really, Shadow Demon is already attached onto his. And really, realistically, Venger doesn't even really need a display stand, because if you look at the bottom of his body, he doesn't even have anything that would attach onto a peg stand anyways. The thing that he actually, funny enough though, they come included with 3 acrylic display stands. My only real guess is that one of the stands was actually there suited for the horse, because the horse, of course, does have 2 front legs, right? 2 Minimate front legs, 2 Minimate back legs. And of course, it still has pegs, so I suppose in theory you would attach it onto the display stand. I mean, I don't think I would really ever display it with the horse anyways, because the horse does have 4 legs. It more than is enough to be able to stand on its own. It doesn't necessarily need one of these. I've got it right now, though, attached onto Deon, the skeleton warrior, and of course onto Wardu, one of my personal favorites. But let's, though, run through all the things that we get here in this second set of Minimates. Starting things first, let's look at Venger. Venger. Love Venger, not only in the cartoon, I love Venger here as a Minimate. The thing that's really neat about him is getting him out of the packaging. He actually has these like little orbs that go around his hands. Underneath that, though, he actually has a regular, like a traditional Minimate hand. It's a lot easier, though, to see it. I'm just going to plug this one back in. Make sure it's all the way on there. It's a lot easier to see it on this side. I'm just going to remove one of the orbs right now. You can see just a regular white hand underneath. I did notice, though, on the other side, that every time I did want to remove the energy orb, oh, it's doing it right now. I was going to say, it normally takes the hand along with it. Just so happens to be, I guess, because I was hitting record. But yeah, these just basically plug over top of his hands. I see no reason why I would want to ever really remove these. If I wanted to remove them, I would just have to find then a place to store all my Minimate accessories. I just so happen to have a bag just full of Minimates accessories. The head sculpt is fantastic on this guy. Of course, he's got the big giant bat wings on the back of his body. The wings are actually attached to his torso, and then the torso is essentially going over top of a Minimate square body. Head sculpt looks good also as well for this guy, but he doesn't have any legs whatsoever. And if you wanted to, you could pair him along with his Nightmare horse. The horse itself, if I can just pick this up right now, it's really neat on this one because not only, again, like breaking the mold, of course, of what a traditional Minimate body would be, even underneath this, I mean, there's nothing really that would say that this is a traditional Minimate at all. Of course, you would have a regular Minimate leg, only really from the sense that, you know, you got the top of the thigh and then you've got the hinge that would be the knee. From below that, of course, you would just have the regular hooves, and of course, you got the head sculpt there on the front. Does have some posability. It doesn't perhaps have as much posability as a regular Minimate that would be attached by a ball joint. This only seems to have a straight swivel. You can already see as well, this one does have the lower half of Denger. So essentially what you can do is if you take Denger, what you do is you remove the lower half of his body. You don't even have to really worry about taking the top of his torso off. I mean, really, that comes off too. I'm just show you guys what that looks like. Take that off. And there's nothing, by the way, printed on the back of his head. But you could remove this altogether if you wanted to. And you can see, like, the head, the shoulders, and the wings are all one piece. That just fits over top of his body. No, really, all we really need to do is remove the lower half of his body. So we'll just put that off to the side. Then you can take yourself as well the horse, and essentially what the horse is doing is, see, it's replacing the lower, like his lower skirting, and as well as replacing like his waist area. See that? So it just looks like he's sitting on top, perched on top of his horse. So we'll just take Denger here, just fit him over to the peg. So if you're looking at it, let's just remove this again. Can I remove this again? There we go. You can see there's a peg right there, and then of course there's the hole that would have been initially attached to his lower waist. So we just plug that in place. Now it looks like Denger's still riding his horse. And it's a believable thing, too. It's not just a case that they took the top of his torso. Can you imagine? They just took the top of the torso and you just literally attached onto the horse. At least they give you a believable lower half of it. So it looks like Denger actually is riding the horse rather than you just not taking the top half of the Minimate and you're just sticking it, plunking it down on top of the horse. So that looks good. I like the look of that. So right away, though, it's not necessarily... I mean, it still is really a 6 Minimate set, but there's some caveats. There's some exceptions to that rule. Obviously, like Dungeon Master doesn't necessarily, I don't know if I would consider him really a Minimate. And then, again, like with the horse would be something that goes as an accompanying piece to Denger. So in actual fact, you're kind of only really getting 4 Minimates instead of the advertised 6. Next figure that we're going to have a look at, though, is Deon. Deon, the skeleton warrior. I've got him already attached onto his display stand. He is, though, one of the Minimates that does require a display stand. The stand simply just, you take the clear post there, and there's the peg. You just fit it into either one of the holes. Deon does, I suppose, come included with a sword. There was a couple of swords actually in the tray, but I think the broader one is the one that belongs, though, to Warduke. So I'm going to go with a slightly thinner blade, and that just fits into his hands. Minimates are fairly easy to attach accessories. It's just a case you're fitting it into like a C-clamp hand. One thing I really, though, like about the Skeleton Warrior is that, I don't know if you guys can hopefully see this, is that his legs and his arms are using a clear plastic. And then what they've done is they've essentially printed a skull, or the bones, over top of the clear plastic. You probably can see it a lot more from the back, how it's just clear plastic, but on the front, man, that looks neat. I love that they added these little bone stampings over top of it. This face sculpt does look very much like, again, a Skeleton Warrior. It doesn't seem to be the case that you can really... I mean, if you try to remove the whole thing, like I was trying to get only just the face alone, it doesn't seem like it comes off. I'm guessing that the face is probably attached already to the helmet. And if you were successful to remove this, you'll probably be taking the face along for the ride. Nice silver that they've applied to the body here. Again, the clear is probably one of my favorite aspects of this figure. Brown gloves. Again, you got some nice silver accents down below there as well. The articulation I won't cover just yet. It probably was a little harder to do with Venger, just for the idea in mind as well that it's a little harder to kind of rotate his head. I'm going to probably spend more of the time talking about the post-ability when we get down to Warduke, which just so happens to be my favorite figure from this. I guess I would say, like, between Warduke and Denger are my two favorites from this. Now, Warduke, we've got a couple of examples from other figure companies that have done Warduke figures. This is probably by far the smallest example of Warduke, and again, I've got him attached onto his display stand. Warduke, though, comes included with his trusty shield. The shield, as you can see there, does have the skull with the horns on the top, and there's a handle on the back, and again, just fits into his hand. Just slide it down there. I did say earlier, though, didn't I? Yeah, it was easy to get these in. Sometimes you have to struggle a little bit. Warduke's, one of the things about the handle of the shield is it's very soft plastic. So again, you try to put it against his hand, it just ends up kind of compressing the handle. Then we can go ahead and take his broadsword. Sword's much different, though, from the Skeleton Warrior. It's got a darker blade. The guard and hilt, as you can see, is a darker gold as well. And we'll just get that into his hand. Just like that. There is no storage on the back, so you can't take the shield and you can't take that sword for matter, and you can't, there's no place to really store it on the back of Warduke's body. Not that he necessarily needs it. He's always really going to be ready for battle and combat anyways. One of the notable things about Warduke is that you never really see his face. Even if I was just to remove his face, basically underneath you'd just be getting a black Minimate head and then just glowing red eyes. There's nothing printed on the back here either. Warduke has one of the more recognizable helmets in all of, well, not only just Dungeons and Dragons, but one of the most recognizable helmets. Right away, you can see a helmet like this and you know exactly who the character is. The body, as I almost just dropped the shield. Actually, you know what? Let's just remove the sword as well. We'll put that off to the side. The body, of course, in this case, you've got yourself like a bare chest, but you do have a shoulder on this shoulder pad on the side. Nice gold that they've added here for the necklace. You got some gold down below here, just above the loincloth. It isn't even just circular shapes either. Hopefully, as you can see, it's the exact same design as that on his shield. So right away, if anybody was to steal Warduke's shield, he'd know right away it belonged to him. I mean, you would go like Lost and Found. How do you know that that's your shield? Just look here. Just look at my loincloth. Nice silver that they've added here to the hands. You've got some silver down below here. He has a very non-symmetrical design to him. So blue in the legs, one shoulder pad, and they're all really kind of on the one side of his body. This is the one that I'll show you guys the articulation. If you're familiar, I'm sure, with Minimate articulation, you'll probably already know the posability that we're going to have on these guys. The head's going to be on a ball joint. It's a little harder, of course, to move it up and down with Warduke's helmet get in the way of things. Head rotates back and forth. These individual arms, by the way, and the whole idea also with Minimates is that you can mix and match the parts. I haven't done it, but I've seen people customize Minimates where they just took, of course, the arm that they wanted to use. Like, hey, that would be an ideal arm for ... Essentially, you're just yanking it off. Now, I've had this in the past, not wanting to remove the arms, where like the arms were really tight, and I end up breaking a peg. So you just want to be careful. I don't have to worry as much that Warduke's going to have tight joints. As you can see, the arms move perfectly fine. If you do happen to get a Minimate, though, out of the packaging, you go to move it, and there's restrictions right away, and you're like, I can't seem to budge this. I can't seem to move it. Stop what you're doing. Stop what you're doing. Take a hairdryer, make a few passes, and then soften up that. You just want to make sure, because these pegs are pretty small. You don't want them to break. The point, though, is that the arms do come out 90 degrees. You can take the arms and rotate them, all the way around. Single hinge only in the elbow. Hands rotate back and forth. And that's again, that's most Minimates. Characters like Denger will have that for the most part for the top half of his body. Really, then the Skeleton Warrior will also have this as well. Swivel in the waist. Legs do split out. They're on kind of ball joints. Hinges on the knees, swivels there in like the lower legs a lot of times, and you've also got swiveled feet. Yeah, Warduke's my favorite. Well, I would say Warduke, then Denger. Go ahead and get him on his display stand. And then again, like one of the oddities in this set is that we get ourselves the Shadow Demon. Now, the Shadow Demon is a spy. The thing that's neat about him is like the lower half of his body doesn't have a traditional Minimate lower legs. What it has instead is sort of just like the stream behind, like I guess the entrail of the spirit. Expecting, though, that this post would only attach as far as probably around right around there. I thought, okay, if I took this off, I wonder if I could replace it with a Minimate leg. Well, you could, but the post goes a lot higher up than I was expecting. For all intents and purposes, you could really remove these, and then you could use yourself like, okay, so let's take Warduke's lower body. Can I do this? There we go. We're going to take Warduke's body off, and you can just attach it just like that. So you can see that that's how you mix and match the parts. You can do that with the arms, you can do that with the head, you can do it obviously with the lower half of his body. It looks a little strange, and now of course poor Warduke. You want to see what it looks like? Yeah, we'll just get Warduke on his, I don't know if, yeah, it should work as well. There we go. Warduke, just get him. So now it looks like he's just floating around. He's a spirit. Let's not do that though. Let's remove these, put them back where we found them. Put Warduke back over there. And then we'll, of course, we'll take the Shadow Demon, put it back on the body where it belonged. The thing that's neat, too, is that this guy also has wings. They're not as broad of a wings, perhaps, as Venger that we looked at earlier. But the wings themselves, one thing I noticed, though, is that the wings are just, it's essentially just a piece that they put over top of a body. It's not as secure necessarily, so you'll notice that the wings kind of wobble a little bit more. The head sculpt looks good for what little we get of it. You can see the little slots for the eyes, little eyebrows there as well. Again, the posability this guy is only going to really have is from like the waist up. Technically, you could rotate the waist, but everything else above that is just your regular Minimate body. So again, you've got ball joints, you've got the hinges, you've got the hands, much larger hands this time around. And again, he's got the ball joint in the head. Nice looking figures though. And again, like just to bring back in here, Dungeon Master. Dungeon Man will just kind of, you know what? He's been stuck in ice this whole time. Let the man breathe. Let the man, well, not necessarily escape. That's the last thing we really want to have him do. But it's a bit of a different set this time around again because, you know, it is sold as really a 6 Minimate set. In realistic terms, though, I mean, the horse is still, yes, a Minimate, and technically it's really a double Minimate because it has the front legs and it's got the back legs, but it doesn't really have arms, so I guess it would still, if you took the tally of limbs, you still added up 4. It just doesn't have arms, but I suppose it would still be essentially still a Minimate body. I guess you would still say you got like 5 Minimates this time around. Dungeon Master, I still don't know if I would consider him a Minimate, in the fact that, yeah, while he does look like a Minimate, he's got the body of a Minimate. He just doesn't have the posability of that. I think all the rest of the figures, though, more than make up for the set, and end up resulting in, I actually like this set just a little bit more than the heroes we looked at before. So the second set of Dungeons & Dragons Minimates happens to be going for the same price online as the earlier looked at heroes. The heroes, to be fair, you got 6 straight Minimate bodies and quite a lot more accessories than you did get for the villains. Though I will say, though, you can see where a lot of the budget had to go into retooling brand new parts. I mean, the villains already have, when you think about it, Venger, first of all, has these big giant bat wings on the back of his body. That had to be retooled. You got a case like Shadow Demon, which really, other than just his torso and perhaps his arms, everything else had to be made from scratch. Deon has now clear plastic for his limbs, his arms, and his legs. And of course, now you've got, of course, the additional horse. That's one thing that wasn't packed along with the original heroes, but the Nightmare is ever crucial if you want to have Venger displayed on top of it. It comes up a little bit short when it comes to the accessories, but I think it makes more than enough when it comes to the sculpting that Diamond had to put into this set rather than the heroes. I know, again, like when you're looking at the back of the packaging and even, again, advertised online, it's a 6-pack set. Realistically, though, if you look at it, you're only really getting 5 Minimates, with Dungeon Master really being just more an accessory than anything else. He wasn't packed, though, along with the heroes. He gets packed instead with the villains. But if you're a fan, though, of Dungeons & Dragons, you gotta have yourself a Dungeon Master. Dungeon Master may have been able to possess the ball joint maybe in his head, the arms by just the way that they're so close and crossed to his arms or crossed to his body. It'd be a really hard thing for them to be able to pull off. And of course, the whole idea in mind is that they want to kind of use the same molds for Minimates and then just sort of add things over top of it. It would be a hard thing to really be able to do that with Dungeon Master, and I can understand why. He's more of an accessory than he is a Minimate. Like with the set before, this set's going online or in some specialty stores for $49.99 or about $50. And again, I think that asking price isn't bad at all. If you're a big fan of Dungeons & Dragons and you're a big fan especially of the heroes like I am, a great set, well worth picking up. Big thank you once again to the folks over at Diamond Select that did provide this sample of the Dungeons & Dragons Minimate. This was the second set, and this was all about the bad guys. If you guys did enjoy this video, hey, why not? Why not hit it with a like? And why not, if you guys want to stick around for more, hit the subscribe, turn on the bell, come back, please. As always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.